Welcome to our continuing series of virtual voices, focusing on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Last week, our webinar was interrupted by the Russian bombing of the communication infrastructure so that the truth about what is going on in Ukraine was not heard. So we have organized our schedule to present to you the students that were not able to present last week. We will start by listening to Professor Yaroslav Tabinsky, who is the head of the journalism department at the Ivan Franko National University in Lviv. His main areas of interest is photojournalism and international cooperation. He is the coordinator of the Kremenchuk Foundation Scholarship Program in Lviv and the surrounding area. Since Russia's attack on Ukraine, he has been working with students on development of media that publish factual news from Ukraine to the world. Next, we will hear from Sofiia Kos, who is the student of journalism at the Ivan Franko National University. Since the war, she is writing news about the war for the media. Following Sofiia, we will hear from Yaroslav Mazniuk, who is the student at Kremenchuk National University. He is preparing for a career in translation. He is also the student of a Kremenchuk Foundation. Finally, we will be listening to Vadym Skliarov, who is a student at Lviv Polytechnic University. He interned at an IT company and plans a career in IT development. Over to you, Yaroslav.
Dear Dr. Drohobych, dear webinar participants and students. First of all, I want to inform you that we are currently working in difficult conditions due to Russia's military aggression in Ukraine. Sorry, but we may have a bad connection and we may suddenly disappear. I will try to outline in general those problems that concern educational process in our country. Today, the world must understand that Russian soldiers came to our land not only to kill Ukrainians, but also to destroy our Ukrainian culture, language, traditions, and historical memory. The most important thing for them is to destroy our national identity, which makes us a separate democratic society. Russian terrorists attack peaceful cities of Ukraine with missiles. First of all, to scare people, sow fear and panic. Not only the area near the front line, but the cities of Kharkiv, Kherson, Mykhailo, Odessa, and even the capital, Kyiv, assaulted every day. During the massive rocket attacks, cities that are hundreds or even thousands of kilometers away from the combat zone were also affected. Russia continues to destroy the Ukrainian energy system. In all regions, electricity is turned on only for a few hours a day. There is no internet and mobile communication. The home of Ukrainians are cold and dark, but it will never break us. Even for the webinar today, many students were looking for a place with a gasoline electric generator and Wi-Fi. connect to internet. And for example, yesterday, there were at least 4 alarms in all regions of Ukraine. And of course, alarm stopped and interrupt school lessons, university classes, and everything else that is related to the life activity of people. And I want to present the Kovshevich Foundation program. And this program operates in Lviv National University in Lviv, which I coordinate. Therefore, I will tell you a few words about this wonderful initiative. Thanks to this program, students of our university receive scholarships to pay for their studies. This is a great support for their families. Not all young people can get an education because paying for education is expensive. Entire families have lost their jobs, so they cannot earn money to educate their children. Scholarships from the Kovshevich Foundation open up for Ukrainian students not only the opportunity to study and get an education in a certain specialty, but it is also a good opportunity for self-development, improving knowledge of a foreign language. The cooperation of students of Lviv University with Kovshevich Foundation, and during this time, dozens of young people received high-quality higher education, learned English and other foreign language. In addition to Lviv, the foundation scholarship participants include young people from Kremenchuk, Berdyansk, Kyiv, Chernihiv, and other cities. Therefore, such support is always important for all Ukrainians, and all scholarship recipients are especially grateful to the president of the Kovshevich Foundation, Dr. Christine Durbach. We understand that the challenges for Ukrainian education are not only to withstand the terrorist attacks of Russia, but also to continue studying in schools and university in any conditions, to survive and preserve the history of this terrible war in the memory of future generations. Finally, thank you for your attention and for Dr. Durbach for inviting me to speak on this webinar. And I invite students to speak who will tell more. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Tabinsky, for your presentation, and we will move now to Sofiia Kos.
Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. As a Ukrainian and a student, I want peace and liberty for Ukraine. I want to consider the topic of freedom in the context of medicine, which is currently developing and disappearing at the same time. Since the war began, the number of injured people has increased rapidly, which is obvious. In many cities, hospitals and maternity hospitals were destroyed, many doctors were killed. For example, this is a well-known photo of the maternity hospital in Mariupol, which was hit by a Russian bomb. There is another photo of the hospital that was destroyed by an airstrike. Here we can even see the one of the nurses of the institution. For the freedom of Ukraine, we need not only to restore all cities, but also to encourage more and more young people to enter medical universities every year. Your universities must improve their teaching methods. The government must invest money in the construction and the development of new rehabilitation center, etc. Then medicine in Ukraine will develop, people will want to be treated here, and we will not be partially dependent on foreign countries. We must improve as many industries as possible, including medicine. Most people now lose their limbs and they need prosthetics. So today I'm going to talk about prosthetics in Ukraine, prosthetics for Ukrainians in the USA, why some people choose a different country for recovering after amputation, and what is the biggest problem with this industry in Ukraine now. And I will directly demonstrate to you the real story of some of them. Compared to previous years, the number of people who need prostheses was tripled. Now our government doesn't publish exact number of those who have injured during the war. However, it is clear that currently the number of disabled people is gigantic. Usually the victims do not know about prosthetics in Ukraine and go abroad for this. For several years, there has been a stereotype that there are no professionals, quality materials, or rehabilitation centers in Ukraine. It is not true, but of course there are some problems with this. We have the same modern prostheses and quality patients recovering as the foreign countries, but there is a catastrophic lack of doctors and rehabilitation centers in country, as a great amount of military and civilian people have been injured during the war. I mean that quality services are provided, but for a limited number of victims. Currently, the largest number of rehabilitation centers for prosthetics are in Lviv, and good rehabilitation is also offered in Kyiv. One of the largest centers is Unbroken, or in Ukraine, Nezlamny. On their website, also everyone can donate for the needs of the center. Now I'm going to tell you about Vladislav. In the photo, he is on the left. He was seriously injured in March last year. His left leg was amputated above the knee. He got a prosthesis in Lviv, and he also already was undergoing rehabilitation in Kyiv. And this is him already with the prosthesis. Prostheses were also installed on this man's right leg and left hand in Lviv. His name is Mykhailo. He said that he had been scared to put on a prosthesis, but when he realized that he could walk again, he had become very happy. The hand prosthesis helps him to restore the usual hand acting because it has sensors that respond to nerve endings. Training the hand takes a lot of time, but he doesn't give up. And this is Yuri. He has lost his hand because of explosion, and he was also fitted with the lightest hand prosthesis in the world at the Unbroken Center in Lviv. However, as I already said, the number of rehabilitation centers in Ukraine is small, so Ukrainians are moving to the USA for prosthetics. I would like to tell you about the first 5 Ukrainian soldiers who were fitted with prostheses in the USA. This is a photo of the men as soon as they arrived in the USA. And this one of these same men when they already have prostheses and they are trained how to walk with them. Of course, there are still many people who are going through treatment abroad. but I would like to admit that Ukrainian doctors point the fact up that the injured should stay for prosthetics in Ukraine if it is possible, because the prosthesis must be constantly maintained, and it is difficult to do this at a long distance. And in conclusion, I would say that doctors in Ukraine are working on providing prosthetics services for as many people as possible in Ukraine. Unfortunately, this requires more time and resources, which we don't have. I believe that the medicine will be fully restored in Ukraine, so many people will have the opportunity to live here safely. It will be one of the many reasons to stay in the independent country which continues to prosper. That's all I have. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you very, very much, Sofiia, for a very excellent and important visual presentation. We will now move to Yaroslav Mazniuk.
Today, I would like to talk with you about the goal of Russians in this war. I want to remind to our audience, our Western partners, of the purpose of the war for Russian soldiers and the community. The principle is not quite difficult, and it can be easily described as the next: either you submit to us or we destroy you. Satellites provided us with the pictures of mass graves stretching for a long distance and expanding every day. This is the image of the mass grave expansion in Mariupol in March and April. We keep finding mass graves of Ukrainian people even months after reclaiming our territories back. After investigation of dead bodies, we can assume that people who died there had been executed or died from cruel tortures. This picture of bone with the yellow-blue bracelet is the most vivid and irrefutable example of why this war was started. They have come to kill us for who we are. We know that around 2 million Ukrainian civilians from the occupied regions have been deported forcibly to Russia. This is a part of the genocide they're committing against us, as it decreases our population as well as turns the deported people against Ukraine, against all of us. We have seen that Russian soldiers do not allow people to evacuate to the territories controlled by Ukraine. And even if there was a humanitarian corridor arranged, the Russian soldiers keep shooting the civilian people, civilian cars, and force them to stay in the occupied territory or go to Russia instead. There are also many filtration camps. We have got many reports of captives who had undergone such camps. People were forced to inhumane tortures, horrific physical and psychological abuse, and humiliation. These camps were built to exact information about the people of Ukrainian position, as well as about those who connected with the Ukrainian government, authorities, also about local activists, retired soldiers, and partisans. If the person was involved in such activity, he got murdered immediately. Those who undergo the filtration were allowed to stay in the occupied area or go to Russia. There were also many evidences of the torture chambers found in the occupied areas. They were located mainly in the basements. Perhaps the main purpose for the torture chambers was to inflict fear on people And let's not forget that Russian beasts do much of their crimes just for entertainment and to release their anger on the civilian people because of the failure on the battlefield. After reclaiming her son, the torture chamber for children was found. There, children suffered from hunger. The occupiers kept telling them that the parents left them for no good, and they tried to break their will to life. According to local testimonies, the children were given little water and almost no food. They were subject to psychological abuse at the hands of the Russian captors. And according to our general staff, the Russian army has lost around 130,000 soldiers since February 24. It is still nothing compared to the number of people stolen from us. Russians lose literally needless people, prisoners, alcoholics, bandits, murderers, jobless, and they receive much more Ukrainians in exchange. Around 300,000 of them are children. As soon as Russians occupy the territory, they immediately begin to implement their school programs and Russian speech to children in order to turn them into their side and make them hate Ukraine. The majority of these children will be forcibly deported to the depressed regions of Russia. Much work will be done by the occupiers to completely change them into another resource of the next war, whether with Ukraine or with any other country in the future. Lots of people from Donbass and Crimea have already become loyal to the Russian occupation for these 9 years. There is no guarantee that we will return those people back, those forcibly resettled people back, or somehow rehabilitate those who became Russian supporters. We cannot rely also on any humanitarian organizations such as Red Cross or even UN because they are not efficient in working with the terrorists. We cannot rely on diplomacy because any agreement signed with Russia is not worth the paper it is printed on. Only military force and strong, brutal response can do something to defend the innocent and take back what is rightfully ours. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very, very much, Yaroslav, for an exceptional presentation of the brutality and the torture and the graves of the Ukrainians that have been infiltrated by the Russian aggression. Your presentation was very, very illuminating. And now we will go to Vadym Skliarov. Vadym?
I want to start with the terrorist attacks of Russians on the energy system of Ukraine, which began on October 10, the purpose of which was to plunge Ukraine into darkness and cold, as well as to undermine the population's support for the army and the country leaderships. But it was not possible thanks for the armored forces of Ukraine and energy workers who are repairing day and night. As you can see, this is all the attacks on the energy sector of Ukraine since October, according to the data and number of missiles fired. And here you can see the launched rockets by month and total of them. And if you analyze this, we can see trend of their decrease. Russia already feels missiles hunger, but unfortunately, it can still create a small numbers of missiles and launch them on the territory of Ukraine by combination it with Iran drones. At the moment, all head and power plants are damaged, and some parts have been completely destroyed. Will be the hardest winter in the modern history of Ukraine. Um, uh, how do people deal without electricity, food, internet, and typical items in our lives? Now the rumble of generation on the street is commonplace. People buy generation from all over the world. The West also donates equipment and generation for hospitals, schools, and government institutes and infrastructure. The government also launched the Nezlamnosti or shelter program where people can stay warm, eat, and charge their device if they have no electricity at home. Power disconnection will affect everyone, including me as a student. Search for connection to the internet, keep several power bands ready to connect to lecture and these webinars. Every Ukrainian now his disconnection group by electricity. Now this is our everyday life. And unfortunately, power disconnection is not our only problem. Russian terrorists continue to destroy us and our homes. On January 14, it was Celebrate Day. During MSC for attack on Ukraine, a rocket hit a high-rise building in Dnipro. According to updated information, this rocket claimed 46 people lives, and 80 people were injured. 3 of them are in serious condition. Among them is a 9-year-old girl, said the OWA. And how it's happened and what we can do. According to preliminary data from the Office of Prosecutor General of Ukraine, the Russian military fired a long-range X-22 supersonic cruise missile at a high-rising building in Dnipro. This type of rocket leads to the greatest human casualties because this rocket is extremely inaccurate, has a huge deviation. Russia has already used this rocket. Such a rocket hit a shopping center in Kremenchuk a few months ago, where it killed 22 people. The armored forces of Ukraine don't have firemen's capability of shooting down this rocket. Ukraine Air Forces Commander Mykhailo said later. And what we can do and what our alliance can do. On the last Rammstein 8, if you add up the military aid of only the USA, Germany, Sweden, and Finland, then in monetary terms, it is almost $4 and $5 billion. In addition to them, we can add British, Canada, Poland, Denmark, Czech Republic, Netherlands, and especially Estonia, which invest in Ukraine the most in terms of its GDP. Western countries in general promise to provide Kyiv which more than 300 heavy tanks. Ukraine will also be supplied with about 700 different battle machines and about 150 pieces of artillery. Also, in this Rammstein was announced air defense system to keep Ukrainian lives and saving them. And sorry. And
Thank you.
I want to say what next. At the next Rammstein meeting, Ukraine expects the transfer of modern fourth-generation fighter F-16, and that will help close the sky. In order to close the sky in Ukraine, we need 180 fighter jets, said Air Force Speaker Julia Ignat. Ukraine also expects long-range missiles that can hit 150 kilometers. For now, Ukraine have only with 70 kilometers that it was it played a key role in the counteroffensive in Kherson direction, and most of the Kherson region was liberated and saved many lives. Thanks for your attention, and glory to Ukraine.
Thank you very, very much, Vadym, also for excellent presentation. And we will now move on to our moderator, Susie Halleck. Susie?
Thank you, Dr. Durbach. The first question we have for each speaker is, what changed in your life when the war started, and how has it affected your daily routine? So we can go in order. Let's start with Yaroslav Tabinsky to get started. Thank you.
Can I start here?
Yeah.
It's very difficult when your country is terrible war, and it is very emotional, and for each other in Ukraine, and this is very important for our university, our schools, our cultural and other things of people life. And I think that we will try, and we must win in this war, because this is very emotional and psychological tragedy for each of Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'd love to hear from Sofiia next.
Thank you. Life changed a lot during the war, especially the physiological state, but I wonder how many opportunities appeared during the war. And when it is war in your country, you don't want to miss any opportunity, and that's why you work more, learning more, and studying better even. Thank you.
Thank you, Sofiia. Now moving to Yaroslav Mazniuk.
Well, the beginning of the Russian invasion on Ukraine was really terrible and shocking for all of us. And each day I keep thinking that some people die in the east, in the occupied regions. Many of them are civilian people. Many of them are military people, are soldiers that keeping Russians at bay. And of course, it changed the life of every one of us. It changed the way how we do our everyday things, how we work, how we attend our classes at school, at university. And every day you can be a target of Russian military aggression. You can die every minute from their rockets. That's it.
Thank you. Now we can move on to Vadym.
in our days, I cannot live without news. I'm always reading reading about terrible things that happen because Russia wants become empire again. This war changed our mind, our logic, our lives. I know my friend are died in this war or in captures, and now we can see who is really our friends and who is not and was not. That's all.
Thank you for the candid responses. We received a few questions for Sofiia. So first question is, do you know how perfectly prosthetics replace a lost limb?
Thank you for question. Of course, it will not be possible to restore a completely normal life, but sometimes there are better cases. For example, a hand prosthetics can respond to nerve endings, and then a person can practice taking something in his hands. As for leg prosthesis, if the limb was amputated below the knee, it will be easy to restore walking. But if it is above the knee, it is much worse. But I think if you do your best, you can achieve very good results even with prosthetics.
Thank you. The next question is, what emotions did you have on the first day of the war?
I even can remember how it was. I can remember that in second or third day I cried with my family because it was stressful. We all panic, but I can't remember what exactly I feel inside my soul.
Thank you. And the last question was, is prosthetics free for Ukrainians in the USA and Ukraine?
In Ukraine, the government tries to pay for prosthetics for military and civilian injured as it is possible. And in the USA, people are also offered free prosthetics. For example, the first 5 soldiers were paid for treatment by prosthetics for Ukrainians project. So everyone can have their prosthetics free.
Thank you for the perspectives. The next few questions are for Yaroslav Mazniuk. In your opinion, why do Russians still continue this war?
Thank you for your question. So we know that Russians contempt every other nation. They think that they are the strongest nation, the strongest people in this world. Their country was one of the victorious countries in the World War II, and they just can achieve everything they want in military way, and they need Ukraine as a part of their country. I think maybe some resources that we provide the world with are needed to them the most. They just need our territories and also our people. But our people, not as Ukrainians, but as Russians. That's it.
Thank you. The next question is, how does Russia hide its true goals from Ukrainians or maybe from their own people as well?
Hides. Do they really need the reason to hide. Maybe some people believe what the Russian government is telling to them. I think, yeah, the majority of people believes it. The others know the truth, but they still like what the Russian military is doing to us. And I think the Western countries and some Asian countries that do not want to provide to Ukraine help, with aid, also require this attempt to hide the truth. They need the reason not to help us. Yeah.
Thank you. We spoke a bit about children being tortured in Kherson. Are you aware if this only happened in Kherson or also elsewhere?
Just remember Bucha, remember every other region, like Kharkiv region. We know about Izium mass graves. We know about the Kiev Oblast or region, about Donbas region. We keep receiving the information about the tortures, the abuse, and all other harm that Russians are doing to our nation, to our people.
And the last question is, what was the most difficult thing for you during this war?
Well, when it was started, of course, I fell into desperation. I thought that was the end. But then I've seen the hope, and the hope to win, to withstand, the hope to even maybe get rid of this aggression from the Northeast. So I think at the beginning it was the most difficult time. Now we get used to this for almost 1 year of fighting, and nothing can really like excite us more, excite in bad way.
Thank you. The next few questions are for Vadym. So the first question is, do you think military aid to Ukraine from other countries has been sufficient so far?
First I think we need more and more military aid to save our people, our children against Russian terrorists. And for this, we need new and new weapons to counteroffensive and liberate our territory. That's all we can do with Russians. Any negotiations doesn't matter for them, as we saw in our history.
Thank you. What does freedom mean for you?
Freedom. Freedom for me is I can do what I want by law, of course, and I can choose our leadership, our goal in our country. That's it for me, library. It chose.
Thank you. And how can each of us now fight for the freedom of Ukraine, like local citizens, not just government officials?
How we can fight for our freedom?
Yes.
Everyone can help. Just send money, say some words to the world, and see that we want to live in freedom, like in Europe, like in America, with democracy, not with with these dictators in Russia and Belarus. We just want to live in peace, and everyone can say it, send money, maybe buy some food for our army, for people who has destroyed homes. Everyone can do this.
Thank you. And then the last question is, do you think Russia thinks that attacking the energy infrastructure will make Ukrainians surrender?
I think they thought about it. From 10 October, we had only one succeed. We have only 1 or 2 days blackout for all of Ukraine. And this is only they succeed. And now their missiles, they don't have so many missiles, and they should combine it with Iran drones. And in Ukraine, we can see it's not impossible for them to destroy all of our energy system, because we can defeat them, and our Western alliance can help to rebuild them.
Thank you, Vadym. The next few questions are for Yaroslav Tabinsky. So the first is, in your opinion, why is education in Ukraine so important, especially for children and young people going through the war?
I think that education is basic in development for our children. This is way to democratic, and I think this is way to freedom. And our university and our schools must be strong.
The next question for you is, what do you think about the Ukrainian language in Ukrainian today? And why is it important that all Ukrainians speak Ukrainian? Does it even matter?
Yes, I think that Ukrainian language and situation nearly this problem is very important, and it's important and difficultly because many people who lives in the East region, they speak in not Ukraine, but Russia, or this is, we call this Surzhyk, and we must develop special program for learning Ukrainian language, and this is very this is the question for number one, because language is the missiles too. We know that. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last question for you is, what do you think Ukraine would have been like today if the language had not been banned during Soviet times, or if also during Soviet times, everything Ukrainian had not been destroyed?
I think that Ukrainian language and Ukrainian culture must be a great thing for each Ukrainians. This time is war, and Russia Federation attack not only rockets, but information field, and information manipulation and propaganda, and this is very very important.
Thank you. Actually, one more for you, given you brought up the point of propaganda. One participant asked about propaganda and the aspect of war. So in your opinion, how strongly does it affect the course of the war and its perception in general?
Propaganda, this is very difficult process in media, and this the world must understand and must hear us, we must try very, very difficult work in every day. And I think maybe Sofiia added to this theme, we write some news for media, and she know that manipulation and propaganda in Ukrainian mass media.
Thank you, Yaroslav. And Sofiia, do you have anything to add to Yaroslav's response related to propaganda?
I agree with Yaroslav, and I can say that even my mom, not usually, but sometimes I believe in different propaganda news in media in Ukraine, and it just scared me a little bit, because it's important to read and watch clearly right news in our media.
Thank you. We've received another question for you as well. So in your opinion, will there be changes in terms of prosthetics and medicine in Ukraine in the future?
Thank you. I think that it is now very have good situation in this industry in Ukraine, and I believe that and I know that in Ukraine for the next few years prosthetics will be more better, maybe, but it is now, it's not bad, but of course it's will be good to be very progressive in this industry.
Thank you. Next question is for Yaroslav Mazniuk. What impressed you the most during this war?
The will of our people to fight, to withstand Russia. Well, I've heard a story that in Bucha, some rich person told our soldiers that the Russian soldiers took his house and settled there, and he helped our soldiers to launch a rocket, a missile in his own house to destroy Russian soldiers. There are also many similar stories of our people heroism and self-sacrifice. That's why we are not died yet.
It's amazing. A lot of bravery and heart and pride for the country.
Yes.
Vadym, a question for you is, how do you deal with fear during the start of the war? One of the audience members even wonders, when you turn off the lights, what do you do?
When turns the lights, I have a table. I can download some books, some articles to study, a little series, films also, and I can watch and I can walk with my friends, with my dog. The main problem is not electricity; it's the war. Especially in winter, this is the most problem, and it can help only blank in our days and warmth. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Very helpful. The next question is for all speakers. I'll go in order. Can you please describe Ukraine in 5 words? What is the main strength of Ukrainians, and what's most important for us to know about Ukraine? So I'll start with Yaroslav Tabinsky, please.
Thank you for your question. I think that freedom is the independence of my country, and it is a preservation and development of the Ukrainian language and culture, Ukrainian traditions, and now we must remember our history, our everyday and each situation in Ukraine, and this is history we must save for the next generation. And I know that many volunteers now every day, and this is very hard work, and this all of Ukraine work for the victory and support our army, because this is very difficult way for our freedom. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophia, do you have any way to describe Ukraine and the strength of the country?
I think that Ukraine is well developed in these 5 points, like culture, music, cooking, sport, even cinema and TV shows. And I'm sure that in future these items will progress, and Ukraine is the same good country as any foreign countries in the world.
Thank you. Next, can we hear from Yaroslav Mazniuk?
Yeah. So actually, if you look in our history, this war did not started in 2014 year. This war, the duration of this war is like 8 centuries, and we never gave up. We had the repressions from Russia in Soviet times, also when we were under their empire in the 19th century, and before it, they also tried to conquer us and destroy us, but we still stand up for what is rightfully ours, for our ideology and nation. And this is happening in today, in these times. We are still defending our freedom and our people. That's what I wanted to say about our national aspect.
Thank you. And lastly, Vadym, do you have a way to describe Ukraine in 5 words and the strength of the country?
In 5 words, I didn't remember who said these words, but don't fight with Ukrainian, because Ukrainians really like their freedom, that they ready to die for it.
Thank you. And thank you to all of our speakers for the incredible presentation, candid responses, and perspectives. Back to you, Dr. Drohobych.
Thank you very much, Sudi. I first would like to thank Professor Kabinsky for organizing the students and for sharing his perspectives and views with us. And then I would like to continue thanking Sofiia Kos, Yaroslav Mazniuk, who unfortunately looks like the same thing happened as last week, and Vadym Skliarov for their excellent presentation. Susie, also thank you very, very much for moderating. And I wish you all a very, very healthy, a very happy future. Thank you. Have a very good week. Bye-bye.